Hey, folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tornado himself, Tony Pennicow.
And Psychic Tom Badgett with his crystal ball unveiled, ready to go.
All right, so we got a lot to cover this week. We've got UFC and PFL upcoming this weekend. We also have recap. I'm going to tell you guys about my cash out mistake this weekend on the UFC card. It's incredible the amount of underdogs that pulled off upsets, especially towards the end of the card, was pretty ridiculous. Anyway, we got to talk about Jake Paul again. He's in the news now. He says Dana White welched on a bet with him. Let's see what else. We've got some boxing results and a schedule. And I want to lead off with the big announcement that didn't take long to put together. We talked about Tyson Fury evening his comeback fight. Well, he's not wasting any time going after the big boys. He has already inked a contract before they even decided on a venue. So obviously going to be somewhere in the UK, probably Wembley Stadium. But Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury will be fighting somewhere in late 2026 this year. Joshua already has a tune-up fight, they're calling it, scheduled for July in Riyadh. He's been fighting under the Sheik's banner there for a while. He's going to be fighting on July 25th, 2026, against a guy named Christian Prenga, who I've never even heard of. He's got a 20-1 record, though.
So, yeah, not familiar with him.
Not going to be a big deal for Joshua. And, either way, it's not going to derail the fight with Tyson Fury. As I said the last time we discussed Fury and obviously the match with Jake Paul, which was very underwhelming, I really think Fury beats him, especially now that he's got our boy, Iceman John Scully, working with him.
Okay, is this going to be bare knuckle?
No.
or MMA or boxing? Or which is this going to be?
I thought it was boxing, straight boxing.
Yeah. Where did you get the idea it would be bare knuckle or MMA?
What, Mike Perry? Well, and I don't know. I just thought Mike Perry had found his niche, and then he went over and tried boxing and didn't work out too well. So I just think that Jake Paul would be the kind of person that could put on different things the same night. Maybe, I guess not. So it's going to be MMA, huh?
What are you talking about, Tom? Are you listening?
We're talking about Fury and.
I thought you were talking about Mike Perry. Okay.
Yeah. You got to turn on your crystal ball, Tom.
There it is.
Signal. Yeah, that's bare knuckle. Yeah, that would be interesting to see Tyson Fury and bare knuckle. That'd be great. BKFC will go through the roof. Could sign him. Anyway, let's just real quick go through the UFC Fight Night results. As we talked about last week, Aljamain Sterling, when he's on, and he was on. And he was the underdog going into this fight, which didn't seem like much of a surprise to me, considering Yusuf Zalal's winning streak. But Sterling just has more experience against better competitors, and he really pulled it out, did a lot of wrestling. I thought it would be a finish at some point, and I had heavily Zalal on most of my parlays anyway, but good to see him get a win. He deserves it. He worked really hard for it. And, that's what's probably a lot to do with his, one of his training partners is Rob Freely. So, little cardio machine there, testing him every day. Helped him out a lot there. Actually did come close to some submissions, but just Zalal was just too smart. to fall for that. And Sterling was just, sorry, my computer's so slow. It's beeping at me. So that was a great fight. Ended up going the full distance. Unanimous decision win for Sterling. Looked good. Jocelyn Edwards, another fighter who was the underdog coming in against Norma Dumont. She won a pretty tactical unanimous decision. Just outstriking Dumont on the feet primarily, a little bit of wrestling. And the big surprise for me was Rafa Garcia. He just gutted out a win against Alexander Hernandez, tuned him up, beat him up pretty bad. He was an underdog as well. Davey Grant, not an underdog. He came in there at bantamweight and absolutely ruined Adrian Luna Martinetti. He also won by unanimous decision. And I mean, he did take a couple good punches, but basically outclassed the newcomer there and made the most of it. And where my winning stopped, I could have cashed out a parlay for $73. I'm not exactly sure how many legs I had, but I think it was like 6 or 7. And Raoni Barcelos was one of my biggest underdogs. Also, Ryan Spann, I thought could do the job, and both of those guys did what I thought they could do. Barcelos took a little bit more of a difficult route. He had to really come back after a tough first round against Montel Jackson. It was looking like it wasn't going to work out for Barcelos, but he ended up winning the split decision. Just was quicker to the punch and ended up just basically slightly outclassing Montel Jackson. Ryan Spann was a little bit ugly, but he ended up taking care of Marcus Almeida at heavyweight and ended up knocking him out 2 minutes and 10 seconds into the second round. So I should have cashed out after Barcelos because that's where it started to go south. Well, actually, after Grant, Davey Grant was the one. So I had him in pretty much every parlay. Those were my two big upsets that I was able to predict on the betting score. But didn't capitalize on it because it didn't hit the cash out button. Eric McConico before that at middleweight, beating Rodolfo Vieira by unanimous decision. And before that, Jackson McVeigh at middleweight, predictably beating Cedric Dumas. I think he should be cut if he hasn't been cut already. He's just looked real horrible in his last few fights. He's not lasted very long. And Jackson McVeigh is so new to the promotion, and he just made him look silly. Choked him out in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Michelle Montague did what she was supposed to do, beating Myra Bueno Silva by unanimous decision. Bantamweight, I don't know. Keep beeping at me. Michelle Montague got her win. She was the favorite, so that was what was supposed to happen. One of the ones that derailed a couple of my early parlays, Cody Durden, big underdog. This was the night of the underdogs because I can't even imagine what a $5 bet on every underdog that won in a parlay would have generated. It would have been huge. Cody, I think, was like one of the heaviest underdogs on the fight card, and he just handled Jafel Filo by unanimous decision. Francis Marshall was the big favorite, and he proved why, beating Lucas Brennan in unanimous decision. A lot of decisions on this card, too. Victor Valenzuela beating Max Griffin by decision, and Talita Alencar was another underdog, starting off the card with a win. Lastry. I guess my computer is trying to Morse code its own commentary. Did you guys hear that beeping?
I didn't.
No, I didn't either.
Oh, I guess it's only on my end.
What do you got? A Commodore 64?
Well, it's crazy. Anyway, let's switch to boxing here for a minute. Jake Paul is accusing Dana White of welching on a bet, and this is some kind of crazy information in this article. I did not know that Dana White actually paid for Ben Askren's training camp for the Jake Paul fight. This was way back in the beginning, when Jake was still basically targeting MMA fighters, washed up MMA fighters. But not only did he pay for Ben Askren's training, well, this was according to Jake Paul. We don't know this for sure. I guess he's claimed that he was funding his training. But he supposedly placed $1 million bet on Askren to win directly with Jake Paul. And obviously Ben Askren lost in devastating fashion, was knocked flat out cold. So I guess Jake Paul's speaking out about it now. He says, "So, Dana, where is my money?" He said, "This is the guy who was trying to pay millions of dollars. He was paying Ben Askren in training camp, getting him coaches, and tried to place some $1 million bet that Ben Askren would beat me, and then he no-showed after I knocked him out in the first round." And I sent you guys something I saw on Facebook about, on that same note, about Jake Paul paying Mike Tyson to lose. And apparently he has not followed through on that payment. Allegedly, I should say, because I haven't been able to find anything about it. I was telling Tony before we started. I was looking for stuff about this online. And there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing out there that I could find, which was pretty surprising to me. I mean, there should be something out there in a forum or whatever, but there's really no information that I could find about Mike Tyson accusing Jake Paul of fixing that fight. So I don't know where it's coming from, or maybe if Google is like filtering results or something. If Jake Paul's threat to sue anybody for saying he fixes his fight has anything to do with it, I don't know. But I do know that, not long after that fight, we talked about it on the show, that Jake Paul supposedly paid Mike Tyson to lose, and he spoke out about it. And then there was no lawsuit that was filed against Mike Tyson. So I was like, there might be some truth to that. But then this thing came that I saw. It didn't look like from a legitimate source, but it still sounded intriguing. And supposedly there was going to be an arrest. Nothing's happened.
Yeah, because you'd have to wonder about the legality. There was money bet on that.
Yeah. So I don't know what the truth is to that or where it came from. But crazy situation. Another boxing story with a real arrest. I just started reading about it. I didn't really get to the details of how he was arrested, but the guy Daniel Kinahan, who they had a $5 million reward out for, who used to be an advisor for Tyson Fury, friend of the Fury family. I guess he got too big for his britches, because not only was he doing drug deals, he was also trying to filter Iranian shipments. And of course, we're at war with Iran now, so they were trying to do oil shipments with these old oil tankers and get around the sanctions and deliver oil to Iran. And it was a mixed martial arts fighter and this guy Kinahan that were involved with it. And apparently that's what got them busted finally. The drugs were one thing, but once you start, risking national security and shit, they got him. They finally got him. And he was actually recently seen before his arrest in Dubai at an MMA fight. So he was not keeping a low profile, which probably didn't help with staying free. Let's go to some boxing results. I can get my computer to scroll here. Come on. All right. Scroll all the way to the bottom of the page. I did not want. Friday results. Just yesterday, we had some fights down in Australia. Andrew Hunt being an undefeated 11-0-1, fighting for the IBF Intercontinental Super Welterweight title. No longer undefeated. He is 11-1-1 now, all ones, losing by split decision to Benjamin Hussein. Improves to 14-2, and not spelled like the Iraqi Hussein there. It's USSAIN. We also had a female title fight. WBC Interim World Super Bantamweight title goes to Sky Nicholson. She won by unanimous decision, improves to 16-1, beating Mariah Turner by unanimous decision. I just said that. Lost to 12-2. Yesterday in Australia. Let's see. We'll finally get to Saturday. There's some amateur stuff. Saturday over in, looks like Sweden. Jacob Bank to win. Improves to 19-0 with a knockout over Enjo Lanimu at super middleweight. Enjo Lanimu falls to 20-2. We had our Angel fight of the week down in Santiago de Chile. Francisco Aguero proved to 15-0, beating Angel. Daniel Garcia falls to 20-2 as well. And a bunch of amateur stuff. IBO World Super Bantamweight title was vacant, and it may still be vacant because BoxRec says this fight happened on Saturday, but they have a question mark next to it, so we don't know who won. I love that. Wait, they get a bunch of question marks next to Saturday fights. What are they? They're living in the world of newspapers? They're waiting for the newspaper to show up at the BoxRec headquarters? Mm-hmm. So we'll go to page 2 here. All right, and we had Big Baby fighting out at the Fontainebleau. Talked about that last week.
Yeah, he didn't put any hair on this time.
Yeah, kept his hair on. I don't know whether he used better glue or.
Well, maybe he didn't put any on this time.
Yeah. He improved to 28-1-2, beating Lanier Perot, who was undefeated. Now he's 13-1. Nice heavyweight win for Terrell Miller. Also, another undefeated fighter took his first loss, Fruitus Rojas, 15-1 now, losing to Damian Sosa, who improves to 27-3 at super welterweight on that card. And we had a third round knockout for another undefeated fighter, Alan Chavez, with an S. He's 22-0 now, beating Miguel Madueno, who falls to 31-5 at lightweight. Also won the WBO Latino lightweight title, which for once was contested between two obviously Latino fighters. Nice to see. Okay, then last Friday we had Erislandy Alvarez, not Lara. Alvarez losing by TKO to Jose Nunez. He stays undefeated, 17-0-2 going in now. He's got 18 wins. Just a second round knockout there for Nunez over Alvarez, who falls to 6-1. It must have been a brother situation. We had Lazaro Alvarez on the same card. 10-0 going in. Now he's 11-0. He also got a TKO win over Jackson Furtado in the fourth round, though. 12-3 was his record going in, so now he's 12-4 Furtado. We had another Angel fight. Angels were losing left and right last week. Sofian Umiha goes to 7-1, beating Angel Rodriguez, who came in with much more experience, but obviously didn't help him. Lost by unanimous decision. Angel Rodriguez falls to 23-5 at super featherweight there. And let's see what else we had. We had the East London fight, remember? But it's not in the UK. It was in Africa, South Africa. Azinga Fusile won by majority decision over Asanda Ginchqui in the main event there at super featherweight. Fusile improves to 19-3. Ginchqui falls to 16-2. And then we had a split draw with Moisey Bowie. Because he's got a now record of 8-1-1 and drew with David Nunes, and that was for a title too. 9-2 was Nunes going in, so he's 9-2-1 now. It was for the IBF Intercontinental Super Flyweight title, which I guess goes to no one. Big stuff. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but there was another card in Australia last Thursday too. I don't know if it had finished, but it got on the air with Jason Maloney won the IBF Intercontinental Bantamweight belt. Improves to 29-4, beating Andre Donovan, falls to 12-3 at bantamweight. And then Ben Mahoney stayed undefeated. He's 17-0-1 now, beating Dan Hill by unanimous decision, who falls to 7-3. And that was for the IBF Pan Pacific Super Welterweight title. We also had another draw on that card. A couple people on the prelims there. Xavier Fletcher, 6-1-1 now, drawing with Bongani Sibanda. It's 3-1-1 now. But I'll get to close another window. Maybe this will help my computer speed itself up. Okay, schedule now. 2 stars and above. We don't get as many Jesus and I used to like those. It's surprising though. You'd think there's so many Jesuses in boxing. You should have 2-star fights with Jesus. Or day Jesus. Okay, Friday night we got some fights in Lagos, Nigeria.
You going?
I'm probably not going to be there. Friday. Joshua Alawasun Wahab, 25-2 at super featherweight, and a 10-rounder against Saidi Nkola. It's 11-3-1. And no title there. There is a title on the undercard. There's a question mark next to the amount of rounds. Boxrec needs to get their shit together. Lauren Jaffet. Lauren, Loren. It's a guy's name here. He is 20-9 with 3 draws, fighting Basit Adebayo, who's 9-0-1 for the WBO Africa Super Lightweight title, which is big. And then we go all the way over to Spain for a guy who looks like he's suspended or something. He's highlighted and he's got the triangle with the exclamation point next to his name. So he must have some kind of suspension, but they're allowing him to fight in Spain. He is 13-1, facing Rodrigo Ramirez. His name is Samuel Carmona, by the way. Rodrigo Ramirez, 21-2-2. Right, number 42 at flyweight. Carmona in 57. And then we got a title fight in the United States. Decent setup here in Hanover, Maryland. Sendibatar Erdenabat, undefeated at 14-0, fighting Kobia Baridi, who is 18-1. And this is there's a lot to engrave on a belt here. WBC USA Silver Super Featherweight title.
There'll be some big guys wearing that belt. I mean,
yeah. And wow, we don't have any 2-star fights. Oh, I thought that was Sunday. On Saturday, I was going to say, I thought it went right from Friday to Sunday, but I read it wrong because it was Tokyo.
better night this Saturday.
Yeah, I assumed it was Sunday because it's Tokyo fights.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be on DAZN, and the main event there is Naya Inoue, 32-0, versus Junto Nakatani, also 32-0. So this is we got the exact same record.
Does it show the knockouts? Like, imagine if that was equal too.
Yeah, you got to open a new window for that. The computer can handle it.
Stockbook is not as good as it used to be. I'm telling you.
But yeah, 3 titles on the line. I believe they all belong to Inoue. IBF, WBC, and WBO. Katani has no knockout wins, but that's in the loss column. He's got 24 knockouts for 32 wins. Let me see what Inoue has real quick.
I mean, Inoue's been destroying a lot of guys.
The guy from the UFC, virtually identical.
Mm-hmm.
The record. And all that. But yeah, Inoue's probably going to win, I would say, but this is probably going to be a tough test for him. I think he's going to probably have to go the distance. I don't know if this is going to be the knockout type of fight, but Nakatani, only 8 of his fights didn't go to knockout, so he's got the power too.
I mean, it's like, obviously we don't know much about Nakatani. Wasn't that the name of the plaza in Die Hard, by the way?
Nakatomi, I think it was.
But we don't know much about him, but you know about Inoue, and Inoue's been destroying guys. I mean, destroying guys. Now, as he is growing and moving up in weight and getting mature, getting bigger, does age eventually start to catch up to him? I mean, because the only few times I saw him, I mean, he's been knocked down a few times. He's been down. He's gotten up and destroyed guys. And a fun fighter to watch. So, I mean, you gotta obviously, favor him in that fight. And this is the way he's been going. Will he put another knockout under his belt?
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, that's a close fight on paper. It's hard to predict the outcome, but I mean, the guy is the champ. And if it goes to decision, you know what they say, you got to really take it from the champ.
Right, I agree.
Might be one of those things. Both guys have such a high knockout percentage. I know you can do it for MMA fights, but if you're betting on it, I think you could just do the knockout bet. Somebody's going to knock somebody out.
The bet where somebody is getting knocked off.
Yeah. So that could be a risky proposition too. Could just go the distance just because of that aspect. But anyway, that's over in Tokyo on Saturday. I don't know what the time difference is there, but it's probably going to be more like Friday night over here, I would say. We'll find out. Then we have another Inoue, keeping it in the family over there. He has lost a couple times. Takuma, he is 21-2, facing Kazuto Ioka, who's 32-4-1. That's for the WBC World Bantamweight title. He's and it doesn't say who's got that title. It doesn't say vacant either, but I would assume it's Inoue because he's ranked higher, number 3. I don't know. Box ranks all fucked up. But yeah, probably Inoue is going to be the safe bet there. And we got Toshiki Shimanachi, 22-1-3, ranked number 9 at featherweight, facing Raya Abe, who is 28-4-2, ranked number 24. And no title there. But we've got one on the next one. We got Tanaka versus Sasaki in the next fight. Sora Tanaka, 5-0, versus Jin Sasaki, 20 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw at welterweight, fighting for the Oriental and Pacific Boxing Federation welterweight title. Some of these fights, I don't understand why they're 2 stars. Okay, and we get to the UK. We got some fights over there in Wolverhampton. It's going to be on DAZN. The Kona Walker, 17-3-1, fighting Sam Eggington, 36-9 at welterweight. Also, Bilal Fawaz, 11-1-1, facing Ryan Kelly, who is 20-6 with 1 draw at super welterweight for the British super welterweight title and the Commonwealth Boxing Council super welterweight title. And then a couple of journeymen going at it. Kieran Conway, 23-4-1, facing Mark Jeffers, who's 20-2 at super middleweight. And then we got our boy, our former guest, fighting out in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So, Tom, before you joined us tonight, I was talking about, the Benavidez Ramirez fight this weekend, which I think has potential to be a really, really good fight. And, Saturday is my dad's birthday. So I asked him if he would like to watch the fight, we'll get it, maybe get some food and maybe smoke a cigar before the fight. And I'm like, it's funny. I'm like, because his birthday is Cinco de Mayo weekend. So there's always a big fight on or around his birthday. My birthday in September is around Mexican Independence Day weekend. So there's a big fight usually on or around my birthday. So it's like every year we'd either be watching Floyd or Canelo, or Floyd and Canelo, Oscar De La Hoya. We'd always be watching one of those guys on our birthdays. So, we were talking about this fight, and it got me thinking. The one year his birthday, May 2nd, was a Saturday, and that was 2015 when Pacquiao fought Mayweather, which unfortunately the fight was underwhelming, but we watched together and we had some laughs. And me, I make fun of everything. I got one of them idiot senses of humor. And so the head night, the first thing I was like, Mayweather's ring entourage is Justin Bieber, Triple H the wrestler, now the head of WWE, and the Burger King. And I said, Pacquiao wore gold and red. I'm like, was he trying to counter Triple H and give his own version of Hulk Hogan? Or was he endorsing McDonald's? Because in that case, Burger King beat McDonald's. And then I said, the other thing I noticed was, they have a fighter from the Philippines and a fighter from America fighting in America. Why are you also singing the Mexican national anthem? I'm like, what's next? Are they going to bring out Nikolai Volkov? May he rest in peace. And sing the Russian national anthem. So these are all things my idiot brain thinks of. So I'm like, we'll have the fight this weekend on my dad's birthday. And, but this one looks to be a pretty interesting fight because you have Benavidez, and Benavidez, somebody made a point that I don't necessarily agree with. So Benavidez is 31-0. He's 25 knockouts. And you can see he's fought some good fighters on there. Knocked out Demetrius Andrade in 6 rounds. David Lemieux, he stopped in 3 rounds a couple years ago. Alexander Gvokstik, he beat him by unanimous decision, won 8 or 9 of the 12 rounds. David Morrell, who was an undefeated fighter, beat him by unanimous decision, stopped Anthony Yard in his last fight. So now Benavidez has been mostly campaigning at light heavyweight. So he was up super middleweight till about 23, and then at 24 and 25, he was fighting at light heavyweight. And someone goes, well, he's moving up in weight because he's fighting cruiserweight against Gilberto Ramirez, Zurdo Ramirez, who we've interviewed. And yes, they are fighting at cruiserweight. And you figure Ramirez jumped up to cruiser in 23. I'm looking at it right now. So his only loss, he's 48-1. His only loss was at light heavy to Dmitry Bivol by unanimous decision. He had the good fights with Jesse Hart. Those were at super middleweight. So you're talking about, oh my God, he's got to move up and fight a guy 25 pounds heavier. Yeah, but they both started at 168. One guy just happened to move up heavier faster.
Well, Benavidez fought even heavier, I think, earlier in his career. He went.
Let's take a look. You could be right. I think the heaviest he ever fought was 180. He fought a couple times at 174, 178, 173. Those were back in like 10 years ago, 2015, 2016. And then he was pretty much strictly at super middle up until 23 or 24. His last fight in super middle was November 25th of 23. He weighed 167. Then he moved up and he fought Gvokstik at 174 in June of 24.
Okay, so his heavyweight days were before he became a professional boxer, because I guess he was a lot heavier from what I've read.
So going into this fight, I mean, it's going to be a good fight because Zurdo is a volume puncher. He throws a lot of punches. I remember even when we interviewed him, very, very good interview. He was very engaging. He's a guy that he gives you a good action fight. Benavidez is a good fighter. I mean, this is a fight that on paper should be very entertaining. If I will tell you, I know Benavidez got knocked down in one of his last fights against David Morrell, but I've seen Ramirez a couple times. He knocked Jesse Hart down a few times. But I think Hart had him hurt as well. I don't think Bivol had him hurt, at least not that I remember. Bivol just used that real long guard and tight defense to kind of control the action.
Yeah, he just Bivol.
He Bivol, yeah. He's his own verb now. Bivol. But I see this fight being one of those good technical action fights. So it's not going to be a Gotti Ward. It's not going to be a Corrales Castillo fight. But I see it being like one of those fights where it's entertaining, but at a very high skill level.
Okay, so Tony, now, what do you think Zurdo's strategy will be to counter that hand speed? Because Benavidez he just keeps coming.
Yeah, and remember that knockout he had where he threw like the 6 punches in about a half a second?
Right. And I went back to watch that part of the Caleb Plant fight. Plant fought a good fight for the first half, but Benavidez didn't stop. So the question is, can Zurdo, because I still think Zurdo will be the bigger guy.
Yeah.
And maybe the stronger guy, but Zurdo doesn't have that hand speed. So the way I see it, he's got to make this kind of a rough fight. Try to slow him down.
What your strategy's got to be, and Zerto is not a huge puncher. He's 48-1, and I think he's got 30 knockouts. So I mean, he obviously can put a little oomph in the punch, but he's never going to be confused with an Ernie Shavers or anybody like that.
Right.
But what I think he's got to do is he does throw a lot of punches, but he's got to adopt a type of like a Marciano type of strategy. So you get a guy that's got fast hands and a guy that's a high action fighter, and you're a high action fighter but not as fast, then you got to bring his speed down to your level. And the way you do that is by timing and really just by beating his arms down. So when you're throwing punches, and you don't always have to land everything on the head, on the chest, to the abdomen. Land a punch to the shoulder, land a punch to the bicep, to the forearm. If he's throwing like jabs, time his jab and stick your jab right into the point of his shoulder, where the clavicle meets the socket. You do stuff like that. That slows the fighter down, like what Rocky did to Roland Lastarza.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, that's how you beat a guy with a tight defense, and that's how you got to beat a guy with, superior, natural reflexes, natural speed.
Yeah, and Benavidez has had great cardio.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully Zerto's been training. I mean, hey, I like both guys, but my heart's kind of with Zerto,
I mean,
but,
we interviewed him, and obviously, being a Philly guy, and even though I don't really know him personally, but following Jesse Hart's career, I was rooting for Jesse in those fights. I was like, oh man, son of a bitch, blah, blah. But he's a guy easy to like. He was a good interview. Very well spoken, very professional, and a hard guy not to like. And Benavidez, he's another guy. He's like, okay, fine. Like, Canelo, you don't want to fight me? He's like, all right, then let me jump up and fight the next challenge that I can get.
yeah, you got to respect that.
I heard Canelo's going to fight that young up-and-coming fighter, Christian Mabili. I just saw that on Facebook today. And Mabili's, a talented young up-and-coming fighter. I just don't know if he has the experience yet to be in there with a Canelo. But then again, a lot of it, how much does Canelo really have left now? I mean, we saw how old he looked against Terrence Crawford.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Was it Crawford that made that happen? Or was it Canelo just getting old? Combination of both? We'll find out.
I think that was a combination of both. And then you get like I said, Christian Mabili is like a good tough fighter, good puncher. Canelo got a great chin, but we'll see. Can Canelo still pull the trigger? Because against Crawford, he certainly could not. And even some of his fights prior to that, when he was fighting the Edgar Berlangas and those guys, the fights that he won, he was winning those fights, but he was, and even before he lost to Bivol, or even right after he lost to Bivol, like those fights, he was hitting the guys in the arms and he was like beating up their arms, doing like that Marciano tactic. But you could see he was a one-punch puncher at a time. He wasn't throwing the 3-4 punch combinations. He was throwing that singular right hand to the bicep, and then he was sometimes throwing like a left hook to the body. But so that'll be interesting if Mabili can be the guy that finally sends Canelo out to pasture.
Yeah, it'd be about time.
Amazing. It's like I remember, like he was like that young up and coming 17-year-old kid.
Yeah. Well, now you're really aging yourself.
I know, I really am. It's crazy, like as now, and all of us, all three of us, as use like, and really in any sport anymore, it's like you watch like a sport now, and it's like you watch like a baseball game. I watched the Phillies today. They fired their manager and they hired Don Mattingly, and I'm like, my one best friend, he was like, "Yep, I had Don Mattingly baseball cards as a kid because he was my favorite player." Or it's like you watch a player get hired by a football team as their coach, and it's like, yeah, I remember when he was drafted. I remember when he was drafted.
Yeah. By the way, great job by the Phillies today.
Yeah, two walk-off wins.
8-game wins today.
Yeah, Flyers won last night in overtime, which is pretty exciting. Sixers are playing right now. They're actually winning, and so that'll tie the series with Boston sending it to Game 7, which then they'll lose. But at least they're not going to get eliminated at home.
Really good.
Or as long as they don't give up this 23-point lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the other night, boy, they freaking blew it. I saw them just creeping ahead and then going way ahead, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna cash out this bet here for like $3 that had it was like it would have paid out 60-something bucks on a $5 bet, and I cashed it out, and sure enough, the fucking Spurs came back and won the game. I was like, I should have known. They're the choke kings, the goddamn Trailblazers. But the Celtics, I don't think they can come back from this deficit.
You never know. Philly team, if there's a way a team can blow it, a Philly team will figure out how. And basketball is like a sport, like, because I don't understand all the fouls and stuff at the end. And it's like they were like, so there's 20 seconds to go in the game, you're up by 10. This game's not over yet. How do you mean it's not over? Oh, you give up a foul. Why would you give up a foul? But I don't. I'm not a big basketball guy because I don't understand as much. I don't understand everything about hockey, but a little bit more than I do basketball. I understand baseball, football, and boxing. I understand nothing about soccer.
I hate how the last
And then when it comes to the big sports like pickleball, tennis, and golf, I know nothing. Badminton, nope.
Well, when it comes to my dad joke of the week, I'm gonna tell you guys about a new sport I came up with.
What the hell was I gonna send you the other day? It was something that was like, I saw it on Amazon because when my friend had his birthday last week, I was putting together a bunch of gag things and things I was printing off of like Amazon, like I was going to order them. One of them was a button where you push it and it has like, I don't know how many dad jokes in it. So every time you push it, it does a different dad joke.
Nice. I would love that.
Yeah. If I see the link again, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I got most of mine from the guys that do the Facebook videos where they're sitting on a dock somewhere, and they go back and forth with them. But anyway, we got to continue with this stellar card here. It's not just Ramirez versus Benavidez. They're just stacking this. You and your dad can sit down for the entire day and watch great fights here. Even the ones that aren't ranked very high. We got one here for two regional titles, I guess you could call them. WBC Silver Super Lightweight and WBO NABO Super Lightweight title. One guy's ranked 190, but he's got a great record. Angel Daniel Fierro Barrera, 23-4-2, facing Oscar Duarte Jurado, who is 30-2 with one draw. And there's one of those four named Latino guys, not named Jesus. Not one of the names is Jesus. But we also have Jose Armando Resendiz, who is 16-2. He's ranked number 22 at super middleweight. facing number 7, Jamie Munguia, 45-2.
And you know, he I think one of his last fights was against Canelo.
Yeah, he seems like this is a tune-up for him.
So Munguia lost to Canelo a couple years ago, unanimous decision. He went down, he got up from a knockdown, and he was competitive. Then he had a knockout of the year loss to Bruno Sarace. Got cold-cocked in 6 rounds. Then he came back and he won the decision against him in their last fight, which was just about a year ago, Cinco de Mayo weekend. So now he's going to fight Jose Armando Resendez, who's 16-2, 11 knockouts, has been knocked out one time, and has a stoppage win over Jared Hurd due to a cut. Let's see, and he has a split decision win over Caleb Plant, which was his last fight just about a year ago.
Yep. Well, let's see how that works out for him.
So that should be an interesting fight.
He should be able to handle him. We also have a 15-0. Somebody's got to go fight here at Super Bantamweight. We got Chavez versus Sanchez. It's amazing how the names have matched up here. Ramirez versus Benavidez, Chavez versus Sanchez, all with Z's too.
Yeah.
Jorge Chavez, 15-0-1, facing Jose Tito Sanchez, 15-0. No belt, but it is a 10-rounder Super Bantamweight fight. And then we've got Isaac Lucero, number 12 at Super Welterweight, facing number 38, Ismael Flores, who's 17-1-1. That's for the WBO and ABO Super Welterweight title. And another somebody's who's got to go as well. Juan Carrillo, 14-0, facing Marlon Delgado, who is 8-0. And we also have a Pantoja. I don't know if he's related to the UFC Pantoja, but Raul Isaias Solomon Pantoja, 16-3-1 at super middleweight, facing Daniel Blancas, who is 14-0 for the WBC USA super middleweight title. So yeah, lots of great fights. Amazon Prime pay-per-view. Then we've got a fight on Sunday here. Guess it's worth mentioning. Down in or over across the pond, Yasser Al-Gaina, 15-0, facing Bradley Townsend, 19-0 at super lightweight, fighting for a couple. Boxing Council super lightweight title and the WBO European super lightweight title. And then we got another Tazoo fight from Australia before next show on Wednesday. Nikita Tazoo this time, 11-0, facing Oscar Diaz, who's 16-0. So a lot of somebody's those got to go fights this week. That's at super welterweight, no title there. Also Callum Peters, 6-0, fighting Joe Sean James. He's 10-1 with 2 draws at middleweight. We got another somebody's got to go in a 10-rounder. Kara Rustin, 8-0. Bertie Varol, 9-0 there. And we got one more card in Nakano, 14-1, facing Lorato Diamini, 21-3 at featherweight. Enji Fujita, 10-0, facing Ryoto Muto, who is 9-1-1 at featherweight. Known for the WBO Asia Pacific featherweight title. And that's about it for the schedule. Packed schedule this week. It took us a while to get through that. Boy. I got another news item here. This is reminding me of a viral video that Sean Strickland put out about a trainer named Tiki Gosn, Ghosn, in the MMA circles. And Sean Strickland basically said, well, I heard this story. I don't know if it's true, but I talked to the girl's father who was involved, and he ended up saying that I could go forward with talking about it, and supposedly this guy's been like grooming young girls that he's training in jiu-jitsu, and a couple other girls have complained, but nobody's taken any legal action. And after Sean Strickland went viral with this video describing the situation and constantly saying, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is true. This is just what I'm hearing. Supposedly this guy, Tiki Gosen, threatened to sue him. And we're going to crowdfund it and get a lawyer and all this. And nothing ever came of it. There was no lawsuit, I don't think. So there must have been some kind of truth to it. So now we have a situation, if that was in the United States, all that happened. Now there's a situation where the guy's been arrested down in Brazil, a pretty big figure in the jiu-jitsu community down there. Some call him the greatest jiu-jitsu coach in Brazil today. A guy named Melquizael Galvão, arrested on Tuesday in Brazil for suspected sexual crimes against female students. So he's the father of Mikhail Galvão. That's the guy that's considered another great jiu-jitsu coach. And he's also, the guy that's accused here is also a civil police officer in the state. So you can imagine how many layers to the situation that adds, of him being able to get away with it. But there's at least 3 victims involved, and according to the police, the complainants presented a recording in which the suspect indirectly admits to the incident and tries to prevent the case from going forward with the promise of financial compensation. They tried to bribe the victim's family. 13-minute audio recording of his plea to the victim's parents went viral throughout the jiu-jitsu community, and in the recording, the coach acknowledges his mistakes, swears remorse, promises financial compensation to the students' parents, and even mentions suicide if they go forward with reporting him. So, obviously, he did it. I don't think I'm going to get in any trouble for saying that. But yeah, crazy situations makes you wonder how often that stuff happens. It's under the rug for whatever reason. And obviously we know that there's some accusations that Sean Strickland has made of some of it. Anyway, let's before we get into the PFL preview and the UFC Fight Night Della Maddalena versus Prates card, let's make sure we get our psychic vision and tornado warning in. Usually go with the tornado warning first. What do we got, Tony?
Well, we're about to start the month of May, and, my dad's birthday is this weekend. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to watch the fights, and it should be a pretty good time. And, so since it's his birthday, I don't want to bust his balls too much. And, we're glad that he's, healthy enough to be enjoying, this birthday. But whose balls I do want to bust is a friend of mine who's much older than me, 5 months. But I tell him he's much older. So I have a demented sense of humor. And my friend who turned 50 this weekend, I said, we were talking, and we're like, man, how time flies anymore. I said, I remember I almost ruined his surprise 30th party. And he's like me. He doesn't like surprises. So, they were going to try to throw him a surprise party, and I didn't want to ruin it. And he found out about it. And then he didn't want anybody for a while. We had to calm him down. But the only surprise party we ever had for him, here's how I almost ruined it. He was coming over my house. He turned 30 in 2006. He was coming over my house to give me money for a ticket I bought him for his first professional boxing match, which was Gotti versus Baldomir in 2006. And when he came over, I'm not paying attention. I have the invitation to his party face up on my desk, and I had to flip it. So he turned 50 last week, And being the good friend I am, I gave him Medicare enrollment forms, and I gave him some prune juice, and I gave him, like I said, that a whole bunch of gag gifts, like hey, dad jokes and you don't trust a fart at my age, shit like that. But then I gave him a couple serious things. I had they sent me an extra shirt from last year's Rocky Run. I gave him that. And I gave him, a box of cigars, the ones we really wanted to try. And, we talked about, just where life takes you and what you do. And I'm like, we ended up, his son was there, Dominic. And Dominic is doing some sparring now. And they wanted to watch because he got hit with a jab last week. He does kickboxing. He got hit with a jab in the face, and he didn't like it too much. And Mike said something. He goes, "You wouldn't like it if you got hit." And Mike said, "Uncle Tony used to get hit all the time. He never cared." So we're talking this at the party, and someone goes, "Tony, pull up one of your fights on YouTube." So we got YouTube on the TV. It was a big TV. So, okay, granted, these are old VHS tapes, but they're on TV. You can see clear enough. 4 people asked which one was me. 4 people asked which one was me. Rich, I was fighting Michael Jordan. What do you remember about him?
He was not the same color.
Exactly. So like, and someone walk in there like, so I was like, "Tony, which one's you?" "I'm the white guy." Then another person was like, "Oh my God, Tony, you got one of your friends. Which one are you?" The white guy. The third person, I thought I was about to be on candid camera, and then a person comes in, and Mike's standing there, and they're like, "Hey, Tony, oh shit, which one's you?" Mike said, "Assholes, he's the white guy." And the last thing I was telling the guy at work reminded me, my sophomore year, 1996, right? I had 2 back-to-back fights in 2 consecutive weeks. Both were good fights. Both were bloodbaths. They're on YouTube. So the first fight, I fought a guy named Phil Small, and I was fighting at Lock Haven, and I got a little too wound up in that fight. And we had a good fight. I got hit. He got hit. I won a decision. It might have either 3-2 or 4-1. So the next week, I go up to Mansfield for their first ever show. And me and this guy, Frank Stoltz from Penn State, we get into a barn burner. I knock him down. He 8 counts me. His nose is bleeding. My mouth is bleeding. We really beat the hell out of each other. So as I bring the VHS tape over to my friend's house, we're going to watch it. And I say, "Hey, guys," I said, "I got 2 fights. These are my last 2 fights from last week and this week." I said, "I won both of them by decision." "Okay, cool." So we put the first fight in against Phil Small. And we're, banging each other around a little bit. And all my friends are cheering. It's cool. It's cool to hear your friends cheer while you're sitting there. Then the Stoltz fight comes on. And we start slugging. And my friends are getting into it. And then Tony lands his big left hook, and Stoltz goes down. My friends bum rushed past me to the TV and started yelling at the TV, "Get him, Tone! Knock him the fuck out, Tone! Knock him the fuck out!" I'm like, "Guys, I'm sitting right here, waving my hand. I'm right here, guys. Fight already happened. Can't change it. Told you, goes the distance." But it's cool when you can share something like that with your friends and see how excited they get. And I know I took a bunch of friends to a local fight card about 15 years ago, not far from where I live. And the one guy had a fighter there was a trainer from my old gym down in South Philly. I saw him just about a year ago. He used to actually work with Matthew Saad Muhammad, former light heavyweight champ. And I introduced him to a bunch of my friends, and he started talking "Oh man, you got to see," and he started talking about me, the fighter. Now my friends knew me as Tony, the kid from the neighborhood, the kid they grew up with. They knew I could fight, but they were talking to somebody about me from the business. And they were like, this is so cool that, we're hearing a perspective of him that we don't see because, because he sees him in the gym where even if we saw him at a fight, we're not seeing him, the work he puts in at the gym. And I thought that was, really cool to be able to hear that perspective from, a guy that was a highly respected trainer. And that is my tornado warning of the week. Just, be blessed when you have such great friends that you can say that you've basically shared almost 90% of your life with, and that they still see you as kind of like, a guy that's cooler than he really is. And even though, and they still consider you a badass, even though you're near 50 years old.
All right. How about our psychic vision?
Well, and yeah, you got a good point there, Tony. Don't neglect that inner circle because a lot of people don't have it. But,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And a lot of people will say it's like you're blessed when you have that.
Yeah. And I'm getting to the stage now where I'm starting to lose mine through attrition. And, it's not easy for sure. But on a more uplifting note, I'm going to cut the line and jump in on next week's. We're going to have a little talk about the Strickland and Cosmot situation. And this will involve a former UFC fighter who fought for the welterweight championship named Dan Hardy. Does that ring a bell, Rich?
The last fighter to appear on a Zenergy can when Zions owned Zenergy. Well, they still.
Boy, there's some trivia. Well, see, he first crossed my desk 20 years ago, 2 weeks ago, on April 15th, the end of tax day, when he came to town. Well, not my hometown, but a town south of here, Canton. And he was fighting our former guest and my friend and training partner, Forrest Betts. And 4 days before this Friday, April 15th, 2006, a close friend of mine was killed in a car accident. And I'd been at the funeral that day. And so it was just a horrible week trying to finish the tax season and put up with that situation. So to say that I didn't have an emotional stake in this fight, I mean, I'd be less than human if I wasn't sitting in the third row screaming for Force. But it was a close fight, knockdown, drag out fight. And Forrest got the decision, and I think it was the correct one. I even told him afterwards, hey, if I thought you lost, I mean, you may be my friend, and I wanted you to win, but my respect for the sport's too great. I'd have to go with who I thought won. Well, Hardy really kind of complained about that, about the home cooking and, the fact he was the out-of-town guy. But he kept going, and he moved around a lot, really improved, and wound up getting a title shot and went the distance with the primetime George St. Pierre. So that just shows how good he was. And he had a wild life. Like he had trained in a kung fu monastery. And when he went to China for this and spent about a month there, I guess. It was way out in the desert on the other side of China. And he had some amazing stories from it. But the point is, I started to listen to him more, and I followed his commentary, and I followed his predictions. And his fight IQ, to me, is close to Mensa level. So we had some interesting things to say about the fight next week, and so that's what I want to share with both of you. Because as you know, the consensus is that it's going to be another stroll in the park for Cosmot. do the same thing, come out 100 miles an hour, pick him up, throw him down, pitter patter, and maybe finish him, maybe not. But Strickland doesn't belong in the cage with him. That's a lot of the consensus. Well, Hardy kind of took offense at that. And, because Cosmot has that terrifying image of him. He's the monster. And everyone think, oh man, how are we going to stop this guy? But remember, Strickland had trained with him, and Strickland knows him more. And as I've said a million times before, I have some friends that outsiders that didn't know them, only knew them by reputation, would be really afraid of some of these guys. But I'm not, because I'm their friend. It kind of gets that over that psychological thing. So Strickland has never been subbed. He's been knocked out a few times, but I don't think he's ever really been psyched out. So I don't think Cosmot's going to have an edge there, even though Cosmot's career's been phenomenal. Dan covered his early, when he was coming on, just running right through people. But there were 3 times when he's had shown a little few chinks in the armor, because his statistics, he's 15-0, and 9 of his victories have come in the first round. 3 of his victories have come in the second round. So most guys do not see a third round with him. So what will happen? Remember, this is a 5-round fight. So what will happen if he gets to the 5th round and does not have someone like Dracus that's just going to accept being taken down and think that, well, okay, I'm taken down, I'll just have to lay here and survive, and I'll get him the next round. Dan's feeling is Strickland won't do that. But looking at some of the fights where Cosmot didn't win every minute, we can start with the Gilbert Burns fight. Now that was a 3-rounder, and it was a close fight. I mean, I think Cosmot won it 2-1 as far as I was concerned. But he did. That was the first fight. When you think about it, the first fight in the UFC where he looked human. Then we can look at the Usman fight. Now Usman took that fight on short notice, and it was at middleweight when Usman was the former welterweight champ, and that was a controversial fight. So the question was, in that fight, what if Usman had a full camp? And what if he knew it was going to be at middleweight? And Dan also talked about the Kevin Holland fight. Now, Cosmot got him out of there, but Cosmot had some trouble doing it, because here's the difference between Dracus and Kevin Holland. Holland was moving around a lot, and it took a lot for Cosmot to finally get that Darth choke on him. And he was squeezing and squeezing and squeezing, and it took him a couple times to get it on there. Now, let's assume that Holland could have got out of the first round. How much of the squeeze would have been left? I mean, these are open-ended questions. But I guess where I'm going with this, I'll make a few more points about it, as Dan did. And like he's saying, that the key to this thing is Cosmot only knows how to fight one way. He's in 5th gear. He's coming at you 100 miles an hour. And his way of fighting, I'm going to dominate you. I'm going to smash your face every minute of every round. And that really works good against guys that can't make it out of the first 2 rounds, as we've seen so far. But the question is now that, unlike Dracus, because you look back on the Dracus fight, and Dracus would get taken down early on. And at first, he was trying to do more, but then he just did go into a thing, okay, I'm stuck on the bottom. I'm just going to have to wait. I know I've got a couple more rounds. It's a 5-round fight. We got a few more rounds, and he can't keep doing this to me every round. Well, what happened? He kept waiting and waiting and waiting, but he ran out of time. So by the time Dracus was even trying to stop the takedowns and try to be somewhat competitive, was round 5. And at that point, it was too late. He was going to need some kind of a stoppage. So as Dan was saying, don't underestimate Strickland's ability to get back up because he was a grinder. You know, his style's nothing really fancy, but he gets in your face and he works and works and works. And like Dan apparently did some training out at Extreme Couture, and he noticed that how Sean's in there all the time. He knows a lot of little tricks about how to get back up, how to stuff the takedown, how to handle when you're being walled installed. That now he's not saying he's able to do that against Cosma. That's what we're going to find out next week. But the point is, he really knows what he's up against. And the old cliche to solve the problem, well, first off, you have to understand the problem. So Sean does that. Now, whether he can put it to use or not is what we're going to have to see. So I guess the whole point of this whole thing is this could be a lot closer than people think. And we all know from a title fight that it is different. I mean, some people would say it's now, come on, it's longer. And it's so important that the cliche about every minute counting, well, in this fight, every minute of those first couple rounds is going to be so important. Because if we hear round 3, how about round 4? Round 5? Because Dan finished it off by saying that in spite of how good Cosmot's been, there's always still been that question, has he really, really, really been tested? And he feels that there's a very good chance that that's what's going to happen. And Strickland does have a good camp. Nick Sick is one of the coach of the year for a couple of years back, and he'll see if he can capitalize on some of the stuff we just discussed. So there we have it. And it would be great if we could ever get Dan Hardy on our show. You know, Rich, if you could give him a lure about the the uniqueness, you say he was the last guy to have his picture on the can?
Yeah, so it's one of the reasons why when the UFC owners bought into Zions and took it over basically underneath the shareholders that were lured in by the original founder, the Fertittas paid their own sponsorship agreement for Zions. So they own Zions and they own the UFC at the same time. And this is actually kind of cool because this is what got me a text back from Mark Cuban, the billionaire. Mark Cuban was running HD Net Fights at the time. And to get Randy Couture away from the UFC. And Randy Couture was having a big beef with the UFC at the time. And so they ended up having a lawsuit, Mark Cuban against the UFC people. And it ended up getting moved from Texas to Nevada. And at that point, Mark Cuban was like, if you can't beat him, join him. So he ended up investing in the same senior secured credit package that the UFC ended up getting. I think it was like million, like 25, 30 million. No, it was more than that. It was like 80 million. And it was what helped them buy Pride at the time, because all this shit was going on at the same time. The Zion scandal, the Pride takeover, I mean, the works. I actually also communicated with the Pride lawyers in the United States, in Vegas. And that's what got 6 degrees of separation. That's what got me the yearbook picture of Dana White that everybody still uses today. Comes from my Instagram account or my Pinterest account. Dana White with hair back in high school when he went to high school with the Fertittas. So anyway, long story short, the UFC is invested in Zions through the Fertittas. They end up realizing that they can't default on their sponsorship because that ties back to the senior secured credit facility that they have to have strong sponsorship. So if they let the Zion sponsorship lapse, then they look bad to their creditors and they might get in trouble with the loan covenants, they call them, of that. So they have to pull the trigger on their own sponsorship, and they put $15 million in to acquire the lead position over Zions. And this is what I always refer to as the scam within the scam of this whole operation that they pulled. So they end up putting the $15 million in, and like $6 million immediately goes to pay for the Zions sponsorship. And this at this time, the only fighter on any of the cans was Dan Hardy. And he was kind of at the tail end of his career at the time. And so if they didn't pull that sponsorship out, they would have had to get rid of all that product with Dan Hardy on the can. And it was kind of funny the way that it turned out, because the original founder, this guy, Russell Pike, he ended up always talking about spinning off the Zenergy energy drink and selling that as a separate entity. He recognized, even as much of a fraud as he was, that that was the flagship product of the company. And lo and behold, when the Fertitas got rid of Zions and sold it to a company called Big Red, the only thing that survived was the energy drink. Still out there, barely, still hanging on, but they call it Zions now, and they got rid of the Zenergy name. I don't know whether it was a patent dispute, or a copyright dispute, or whatever, a trademark. But there is no energy drink called Zenergy now. Which one of my buddies out in Vegas that I stayed with when I was out there fighting the case, I talked to him and I was like, "You should try to get that somehow. You should try to get friends together and get your own Zenergy energy drink back." But anyway.
Okay, so can you walk into a store and buy that stuff now, Zions?
Certain stores sell it. Yeah, I've seen it in Walmart.
Uh-huh.
But it's dwindling because it's owned now by it went from Big Red to another company. And I think it's the same company as another popular energy drink. I'm not sure exactly which ones, a bunch of them. So they're kind of phasing it out. They're kind of letting it get taken out of a lot of stores rather than increasing the stockpile and the availability of it. But yeah, Zions energy drink is what it is now. I still have a can of it. My buddy sent me some fruit punch.
Okay.
It's still the can in my fridge. It's actually
remember we used to get Brondo?
Brondo, yeah, the green. It looked like battery acid.
Yeah.
Like green. Oh, cocaine energy drink too. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, cocaine. That's right.
But the funny part about the scam within the scam of that whole story is not only did they buy their own sponsorship, but then they turned around and defaulted on it when they wanted to bankrupt the company. And before defaulting on the sponsorship agreement, they basically got into a bidding war. They that was the middle of the mat sponsorship too. It wasn't just the product sponsorship with Zenergy. So they went to Harley Davidson and they said, "Listen, we can renew this with Zions, or you can outbid them." And Zions wasn't even going to be in a position to pay it unless the Fertitas paid it. So, they really beat that company like a redheaded stepchild. They took everything they could out of it, and there was just so many little nuances. But yeah, Dan Hardy was the last guy on a can. And it's one of those situations where I was surprised. I know that the way that they blacklist people who criticize the UFC and the MMA media, and I wasn't one of those people that was I wasn't that big, but I basically was the only guy covering the story, except for this one guy, Zach Arnold, who was covering my lawsuit. But it's just so huge. I called it the Enron of MMA at one point. and it generated a lot of discussion. It wasn't as big as Enron, of course, but it was.
Well,
there was.
Hey, maybe we could get Dan on the show and you could reminisce with him about it.
Yeah, I don't know. He would probably be willing to talk about it because he's not associated with the UFC anymore. He's with PFL. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. the whole aspect. I'm probably gonna do something like novelize it, because the stuff that I got out of AI just trying to pitch a scenario where that would work was pretty fascinating. That was when I first really started messing with AI, and nobody would ever publish a true story of it these days because of the potential implications and the fact that the UFC has partnerships, or the parent company of the UFC more likely has so many partnerships with media. I wouldn't be able to get Netflix on it. If I did a documentary, I wouldn't be able to get Prime Video, obviously. It'd be tough. But anyway, it's still a great story. But now it's time for my dad joke of the week. I decided I'm going to create a new sport based on mixed martial arts, but we're going to have a stipulation that only people missing at least one limb can participate. We're going to call it mixed partial arts.
Nice.
I stole that from Ginger Billy. He was there's a lot of videos out there. I got to figure out how to do this and put some on my own YouTube page. But you know how they show like a clip of something and then they have somebody commenting on it in a completely different video. They just splice them together. And it was a fight between a guy with one leg in a gi and somebody in a wheelchair in a cage. The guy, I don't know if it's fake or not, but the guy with one leg flips the guy out of the wheelchair and starts punching him on the ground. Ginger Billy comes on the friggin' video next in his backyard, and he says, "Now I finally know what I've finally seen a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest." And he says, "This is mixed martial arts." Yeah, I had a good laugh myself. Well, yeah, I thought that dad joke this week. Anyway, we got to preview some fights, and we're going to start with UFC Fight Night 275, Della Maddalena versus Prates, and this one's in Australia. Maddalena is from Australia. He's got the hometown crowd behind him. Of course, he's coming off that very difficult fight. Was briefly holding the belt there, but not for long. Carlos Prates gets a lot of flack because he's a smoker. Smokes cigarettes. I don't know if he smokes as much as Carlos Monzon used to smoke. He used to smoke about 2 packs a day, from what I heard. Prates, probably not as much. I think he's one of those guys that just does it when he's out partying, drinking and stuff. But anyway, he's with the Fighting Nerds gym, and they just have been so phenomenal. They rarely lose. They have a great camp. They have a great group of guys. And Della Maddalena is heavy on wrestling. He's more of a grappler than anything. Both guys have knockouts, though. They both have heavy knockout wins. So this one, I don't think it's going to go the full distance. But most people are on Prates for this, and I am less willing to put all my chips on him. I think he's capable of it. He had that beautiful fight with Ian Gary. Always comes to brawl, and he's just got a lot of reach. He's good on the feet. He's good with the takedown defense. But I think Maddalena has a chance to win this one. He's a slight underdog, but I think he is a live dog, as they say.
Let's see how he rebounds.
Yeah.
All you can say, I mean, after the one-sided domination, we'll see how he comes back mentally.
Right. The practice is dangerous. He could win it. I will probably stay away from it. You know, take that advice from the very first betting video I ever saw on the UFC, which told me never bet on the main event. Maybe an under 4.5 if it's available, 4.5 rounds. Because either guy could knock either one out. And obviously, I think Maddalena would be more likely to get a submission if any of them would get one. But yeah, I don't want to pick either side on this one. It seems too close to me. And then we got the newcomer versus the old veteran. classic story in fighting. Beneil Dariush, 23-7-1, facing Quillen Salkeld at lightweight. And I doubted Salkeld before, and then he goes out and knocks out his opponents by knockout. And he's a heavy favorite. I think he's like -400 something. Salkeld. So I'm just going to go with him money line on that one. And then we got Tim Elliott versus Steve Erceg. And by the way, Salkeld is an Australian guy too. They put all the Australian guys on this card. Steve Erceg in another fight on this card. He is 13-4 facing Tim Elliott, who's 21-13. And got one draw there. Tim Elliott looks like he has way more experience, but Erceg, I think, has a little bit more talent. He's had some hiccups lately in his fighting career, but I think he'll do well at home. And he should beat Elliott. But then that's another one that could be a lot closer than it seems on paper. So I may not go with that. Tim Elliott could be another live pick. Shamil Gaziev versus Brando Perisic. Now this guy Perisic only got the one loss. He's 6-1, but every expert is picking him to win this fight. Gaziev 14-2. He's got a lot of experience against a lot tougher guys, but for some reason he is the heavy favorite here. Perisic. So we'll see how it goes. But if you're feeling froggy, Gaziev might be a good underdog there. Disagree with the experts. One that's kind of a puzzling favorite, Tai Tuivasa. Just looked very horrible in his last two fights. In his last fight, it was a comedy of errors. It was just ridiculous. Both guys were gassing out, trying to beat the crap out of each other. And Louis Sutherland is a little bit more of a wrestler. So a lot of the experts are worried that maybe he could take this fight to the ground and beat up on Tai Tuivasa there. And a lot of people are saying they don't think that Tai Tuivasa even cares if he wins or not. But you got to think that one more loss, he could be thrown out of the UFC. He's 14-9. Louis is 10-5. And both guys, they're not going to win any bodybuilding contests. They're pretty flabby. But Tai Tuivasa, for some reason, is the favorite. You're looking for hard to back. Something that's Sutherland there. And Tai Tuivasa is Australian, so he has the home crowd there. He does this thing, it's a phenomenon down there called the shoey, where they pour beer into a shoe and drink it. So whether he wins or loses, he's probably going to do a shoey. And I just don't know if he's going to get there. Then we got Cameron Rouston versus Robert Bryczek. This middle fight. Cameron 14-3, Bryczek 18-6. And I like Bryczek in this one. I think he's faced a little bit better opposition. Rouston came up through the Contender Series, and he's just had a couple fights against lesser-known guys. So Bryczek is a dog here, underdog. He's got a bit of odds, but he's got a little bit more experience, and I think he's got a little bit more power too. Junior Tafa, also on this card at light heavyweight, another Australian. He's a Maori with all the little crazy tattoos like the Yakuza over there in Japan, kind of full body stuff. He's 6-5. The one of two UFC brothers there. Justin Tafa's his brother. He is fighting Kevin Christian, another guy who's pretty new to the UFC. He's 9-3. Now, but Tafa's the favorite here. He's obviously got a little bit more experience in the cage there, the UFC cage. So he's favored here at light heavyweight. And Christian has been criticized for being very slow. So Tafa probably by knockout, I think, is the way to go on that one. Or just, I mean, it's a light heavyweight fight, so just knockout, period. As a result, could be smart. And then we got, talk about journeyman, Gerald Meerschaert, 37-21 in his MMA career, facing Jacob Malkoun, who is 9-3. And most people would look at this fight on paper and say, oh, Meerschaert's going to win. But most of the experts are actually picking Malkoun by knockout. Meerschaert is one of those guys like Paul Craig who used to just basically fall on the ground and wait for people to come down with him so he could submit people. Meerschaert can be like that, but he can also strike. He can really surprise you. But I don't think he's gonna win this fight. I think Malkoun by knockout is a smart bet there. Then we got the Thickness, Colby Thickness, 8-1. It's his actual name. At bantamweight, he's facing Vince Morales, who's 16-10, has had very bad luck lately in his fights. Thickness on the money line, probably the smartest bet there. Then we got another brand new fighter to the UFC, Ben Johnston, 5-1, facing Wesley Schultz, who's 8-3 at middleweight. And this one is a toss-up to me. I know Ben Johnston is the favorite, but both of those guys are very new to the UFC and have not had the best results. As far as Schultz goes, I think he's lost 2 out of his 3 official UFC fights. In this day, but it's still listed here on SureDog. I know it was a late addition to this card, and actually the original opponent of Marwan Rahiki here backed out at the last minute. So this guy Oliver Schmidt, on less than a week's notice, stepped in. He's 4-2. Rahiki is 8-0. Most of his wins by knockout or submission. So I think he is going to win by knockout. Probably a first rounder, considering the guys had so little time to prepare, but I don't know. I think safer just to go knockout. And I don't know what the odds are because DraftKings didn't have it. I don't know what that means, but maybe they'll add it later. And then Jonathan McAuliffe, he's 9-1 at welterweight, facing Themba Gorimbo, who's 14-6. And at least one expert likes Gorimbo here. It's the underdog, but most of the people are going with McAuliffe. I'd probably just go maybe Gorimbo winning line. I like one guy that talked him up, seemed like he was right. Then we got Dom Marfan, who is 9-2 against Cody Steele. With an E at the end, 7-1. I like the guy with the better name, Cody Steele. We get some returns on our investment this week. And then the last card we have to review is a PFL affair here. Finally got PFL back coming to us from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I got a buddy who lives out there, Wonder if he's gonna be close to that. Yeah. But the main event, we have Logan Storley versus Florim Zendelli. Logan Storley, he is a very handy wrestler. He's 18-4 going against Zendelli, who's 9-1-1. I don't think I have ever seen Zendelli fight. I don't even recognize the name. But that is our main event. No title or anything on the line. I know that PFL has gotten rid of the tournament format, so I don't know how these guys are getting paid even, but they have kind of rolled Bellator into this PFL situation. So they do still have all the big names. Co-main event, we got Gadzi Rabadanov, 26-5-1 at lightweight, fighting Alexander Chizov, who is 13-3. And then we got Simeon Powell, 11-2, facing Emiliano Sordi, who is 27-13-1 at light heavyweight. Then we go to Hanan Ferreira, 13-5, fighting Sergey Bilosteny, who is 14-4. Great heavyweight matchup there. And Magomed Magomedov, 10-5, facing Leandro Hito, who is 20-27 at bantamweight. 7th fight tonight is a light heavyweight bout between Razul Magomedov and Rafael Xavier. I don't know if the guys are related, but that's pretty crazy. 2 back-to-back fights with Magomedovs. Haven't seen that one. We got a female fight on here as well. Cheyenne Bowers, 7-2, facing Sabrina De Souza, who is 5-0. This fight tonight, Humberto Bardenay, 27-9 at featherweight, fighting Sang-Won Kim, who is 14-6-1. We got flyweights Taylor Santos, 22-4, facing Hui Yan, who's 25-5. Angel Alvarez in the third fight of the night, 10-2, facing Bryce Logan, who's 13-9. And then we got very poor name for a fighter, Brett Bye, B-Y-E, Bye, making his MMA debut here, facing Taylor Michels, who is 1-0. And then the first leadoff fight is a big boy fight. Carl Williams, 10-5 versus Maxwell Dejantu Nana, who is 7-2. That's a heavyweight fight. And that is it. The last of the last. It is functioning better. Do a clean up. You guys got any final thoughts before we go?
I do not. I'm thankfully working from home tomorrow, so I don't have to see people.
All right. Well, make sure you tell Papa Tornado happy birthday and enjoy fight watching this weekend.
Yeah, we'll go.
And as I always say, this is double for him. What I always say when I sign off, enjoy the fights.
Yeah. Sounds good, man.
We'll try.
All right, see you.
Adios.